Welcome to David's Stories. Today we follow Garrett Stone, a 71-year-old builder who buried his son 25 years ago, until the dead boy's Nokia rang from inside his house with one chilling warning: Dad, they're coming for you next. What follows is betrayal, a living grave, and the most savage family revenge you'll ever hear. Subscribe, hit the bell, and brace yourself. Let's start the story. My name is Garrett Stone. I'm 71 years old, 6'2" in my socks, and for 40 years, I poured concrete and swung a hammer on skyscrapers that scraped the Chicago skyline. My hands are cracked like old riverbeds, and my knees sound like a rusty gate, but I still know how to spot a crack in a foundation before the whole damn building comes down. Right now, the foundation of my life is splitting wide open, and the people swinging the sledgehammers are sitting across my dinner table. Sunday dinner used to be sacred. When Meredith was alive, the house smelled of roast and laughter, and our two boys, Leo and Tyler, would argue over the last roll until their mother threatened to eat it herself. After she passed 5 years ago, the house got too big and too quiet. Tyler and his wife, Brittany, still came every week, but it stopped being family. It became an inspection. Tonight, the mahogany table my grandfather built by hand is covered in greasy fingerprints from a store-bought rotisserie chicken still sweating in its plastic coffin. Brittany set it down like she was doing me a favor. Here you go, Dad. She sings songs the way people talk to toddlers and old men they've already written off. We brought dinner. You must be tired of cooking for yourself. I look at the congealed orange grease bleeding onto wood that's older than she is. I cooked a ribeye last night, Brittany. I'm old, not dead. Tyler sighs theatrically and drops his phone face down on the table. The screen is still lit, some gambling app red numbers climbing. Don't be difficult, Dad. We're trying to help. This house is turning into a hazard. I saw a loose shingle when we pulled in. If you fall off that roof, I fixed it this morning, Tyler. Before you rolled out of bed, Brittany exchanges the look with him, the one I've seen 100 times in the last 6 months. The look that says the old bull is almost ready for the slaughterhouse. She reaches into her designer bag and slides a thick blue folder across the table like she's passing me a birthday card. Since we're all here, we need to talk about the future. Her manicured nail taps the cover. Tyler and I spoke to Dr. Evans. He agrees that at your age, managing a 4-bedroom house and, well, all your assets is too much stress. It's bad for your heart. My heart is fine. My blood pressure is lower than Tyler's, and I've seen the notifications on his phone when he leaves it unlocked. Online poker, sports bets, he's drowning. I set my fork down. I'm not signing anything. Tyler leans forward, eyes red-rimmed. Dad, you're forgetting things. You forgot to pay the water bill last week. Autopay glitched. I fixed it in 10 minutes. You're confused. Brittany cuts in, sweet as antifreeze. This is just a durable power of attorney. It lets us help so you don't get scammed. We're doing this because we love you. Love. The word tastes like rust in my mouth. I look at my youngest son, soft hands, soft spine, and I see a stranger wearing my blood. I said no. Tyler slams the table so hard the plastic chicken container jumps. Silverware rattles like bones. You have to sign it. You're incompetent. You're a stubborn old man sitting on a gold mine while your family suffers. The mask slips. There it is, greed raw and ugly. I rise slow. My knees pop, but I still cast the same shadow I did when I ran 200 men on a job site. Get out of my house, and that's when it happens. A sound slices through the room like a saw blade through sheetrock. A ringtone from another century. 8-bit monophonic, unmistakable. The default Nokia 3310 tone. Every hair on my arm stands up. The sound is coming from the china cabinet in the corner, the one that holds Meredith's wedding porcelain in a small cedar box I haven't opened in 25 years. Brittany freezes mid-breath. Tyler's mouth hangs open like a broken gate. That phone hasn't had a battery in it since 1999. I put it in Leo's pocket myself the day we buried him. The ringing keeps going loud and impossible, bouncing off the walls of a house that suddenly feels too small. Dad, don't, Tyler whispers, and for the first time in his life, he looks genuinely afraid. I walk to the cabinet like I'm walking through waist-deep water. My legs are lead. My heart is a jackhammer against my ribs. I open the glass door. The cedar box is vibrating. I lift the lid. Inside on red velvet, the gray brick of a Nokia 3310 is dancing like it's alive. The green screen glows. Three letters pulse on the cracked display. Leo. The room tilts. I feel the floor trying to drop out from under me. I press the green button and raise the phone to my ear. Static. Then a voice weak, broken by distance, and something worse but unmistakable. Dad. My knees almost buckle. I know that voice. I heard it every day for 20 years. I heard it scream this night the car burned. Leo, I croak. Dad, listen, don't sign the papers. They're going to kill you. I don't have much time. Tyler rips the phone from my hand. His face is the color of spoiled milk. He stares at the screen for one heartbeat long enough for the terror to register, then smashes the red button and hurls the phone to the carpet. It bounces, doesn't break. Nokias never do. What is wrong with you? He screams. Who did this? You programmed it, didn't you? Some sick joke to scare us. I stare at him. My living son looks like a stranger wearing a mask that's finally cracked. It was Leo, I whisper. Tyler grabs my shoulders and shakes me hard enough to rattle my teeth. Leo is dead. He's been dead for 25 years. You're hallucinating. Brittany is already on her phone, voice trembling with rehearsed panic. Dr. Evans. Yes, it's happening now. He's having a psychotic break. He thinks his dead son is calling him. He's aggressive. We need you here immediately. I jerk away from Tyler's grip. I'm not crazy. That phone rang. You saw it. You held it. He kicks it under the sofa like it's poison. Sit down, Brittany orders, pointing at the chair like I'm a dog. Dr. Evans is bringing a sedative. It's for your own good. I look at them, really look. They're not scared anymore. They're relieved. This is exactly what they needed, public proof that Garrett Stone has finally lost his mind. One 72-hour psych hold, and they can file emergency guardianship. I've seen it happen to friends. Once the system has you, it doesn't let go. I sit, not because they told me to, because I need to think. My mind is racing faster than it has in decades. How did Leo know about the papers that were slid across the table 5 minutes ago? How is a phone that's been 6 feet underground for a quarter century suddenly glowing and ringing in my china cabinet? The doorbell chimes. Doctor. Evans steps in, smelling of Porsche leather, an ethical flexibility syringe already in hand. I look at the needle, then at the phone hidden under the sofa. I need clarity, not a fight. Not yet. Fine, I say, holding out my arm. But no needles. I hate needles. He pauses, shrugs, produces a little blue pill instead. I place it on my tongue. I take the water. I swallow loud enough for them to hear. Good, Dr. Evans says. Now lie down. Rest. I lie on the sofa. I slow my breathing. I wait. I wait until their whispers turn smug. He's out. Did you get the phone? I'll smash it and toss it in the dumpster. Evans is writing the report. Acute psychosis. Guardianship by Tuesday. They laugh, soft, cruel, victorious. I wait until the front door closes and their BMW purrs away. Then I sit up, spit the pill into a tissue, and flush it. The house is silent. They took the Nokia. They think they took the proof. They always underestimated me. They never knew I spent my retirement nights teaching myself packet tracing and cloud forensics, because grief leaves a man with too many empty hours. I walk to my study, lock the door, and boot the triple monitor rig Tyler thought was for solitaire. 10 years ago, sentimental and half-drunk on the anniversary of the funeral, I synced Leo's old Nokia to a private cloud logger just to save the last text messages he ever sent me. I never imagined I'd use it to track a live call. I log in. 03 p.m., incoming call, source unknown number, duration 12 seconds, audio file attached. I click play. Dad, listen, don't sign the papers. They're going to kill you. I don't have much time. My blood turns to ice water. It's real. Then I see the metadata. The signal didn't come from a prank app. It originated 300 miles away. Coordinates locked. I pull up the map, a fortress in the West Virginia mountains, high fences, guard towers, a place called Sanctuary Hills. My dead son isn't dead, and he just broke 25 years of silence to save my life. I close the laptop. I walk to the gun safe. Tyler thinks I'm sleeping off a sedative. He's about to learn that some foundations don't crack. They explode. I didn't sleep that night. Sleep is for men who still believe their children love them. I sat in the dark study with the monitors glowing like cold blue moons, the gun safe open behind me, and the map of Sanctuary Hills pinned to the wall with a K-bar knife right through the guard tower. Every few minutes I replayed Leo's 12-second whisper until the words carved themselves into bone. They're going to kill you. Not they're planning something. Not be careful. Kill. I needed proof before I drove 300 miles into the mountains with a trunk full of rifles and 25 years of rage. So I did what any builder does when he wants to see how deep the rot goes. I started digging. First call I made was to an old foreman of mine, Ray Delgado. Ray retired to Florida but still owes me for the time I covered his gambling debts in '98. He's got a nephew in the Cook County clerk's office. By 4 a.m., I had PDFs of every document Tyler and Brittany filed in the last year. My hands shook so hard the mouse cursor jittered. Petition for guardianship, medical power of attorney, real estate transfer forms pre-signed by Dr. Evans just waiting for my incapacitation. And the kicker, a $4.2 million life insurance rider taken out on me 6 months ago. Accidental death pays double. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My own son took out a policy betting I'd die soon, and the beneficiary wasn't even him. It was a trust in Brittany's maiden name. I laughed then, a low, ugly sound I didn't recognize. The kind of laugh that comes right before a man starts measuring coffins for other people. But I needed to hear them say it. I needed it in their own voices. So I played dead. At 7:12 a.m., their BMW crunched up the driveway again. I was already in the kitchen, unshaven bathrobe hanging open, hair wild. I'd rubbed coffee grounds under my eyes and splashed cheap bourbon on my shirt. Oscar-worthy. Tyler burst through the door like he owned the place, which in his mind he already did. Dad, he called, fake worry dripping. Dad, it's us. I let my head loll against the back of the recliner. Mouth open, one arm dangling like a corpse. Brittany tiptoed in heels, clicking phone, already recording. Oh my God, Tyler, he looks bad. Dr. Evans said the sedative might interact with his heart meds. Tyler knelt beside me, 2 fingers on my neck, checking for a pulse, or maybe hoping there wasn't one. Dad, can you hear me? I gave him a convincing snore and a twitch. He exhaled, half relief, half disappointment. He's out cold. Grab the paperwork. That's when I felt it, the cold fury that used to scare ironworkers twice my size. I kept my eyes slitted, breathing slow, and listened while my children planned my murder in my own living room. Brittany's voice dropped to that honeyed whisper she uses when she thinks no one important is listening. Evans will be here at 9 with the ambulance. Private transport to his clinic. Once he's admitted, the 72-hour hold becomes indefinite. We control the meds, we control the diagnosis. By Friday, he's a vegetable who begs us to handle his affairs. Tyler laughed, actually laughed. 4.8 million in liquid assets, the house, the lake cabin, the union pension. God, I can't believe the old bastard sat on this mountain of money while I was eating ramen in college. You ate ramen because you blew your tuition on crypto, babe. Whatever. Point is, he's had his turn. 25 years of playing the grieving father. Boo-hoo, Leo died. Look at poor Garrett. Meanwhile, I've been the one showing up mowing his lawn, pretending to care. Brittany's heels clicked closer. I smelled her perfume, something expensive that tries to hide venom. There's still the Sanctuary Hills problem, she said, voice suddenly sharp. He can't ever find out about that. If he starts asking questions, he won't. Once the drugs kick in, he'll be lucky to remember his own name. I felt Tyler's hand pat my cheek, condescending, proprietary. Sleep tight, Pops. When you wake up, all this will be ours. That's when I almost broke character. My fist clenched so hard the recliner arm creaked, but I needed the rest. I needed to know how far the rot went. Brittany lowered her voice to barely a breath. Speaking of Sanctuary Hills, he answered last night. Silence. Thick, electric. Tyler's voice cracked. What do you mean, he answered, the burner we left in the room. It rang. He picked up. He spoke. That's impossible, the dose he spoke, Tyler. He said, Dad, clear as day. The guard heard it on the monitor. We had to up the ketamine again. He's restrained now. I felt the world tilt. Restrained, my boy, my Leo. Alive. drugged and caged for 25 years, while I mowed his grave once a month and left flowers that rotted on dirt. Tyler started pacing. I could hear his expensive shoes squeaking. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You said the car fire would be clean." One body dental record swapped, no questions. But the kid twitched in the trunk, and you panicked. "I did what had to be done," Brittany snapped. "He saw us moving the money, Tyler. He was 20 home from college for Christmas, and he walked in on us emptying the safe. What was I supposed to do? Let him call Garrett. So you burned my brother alive. I burned a problem. And then I gave us both an alibi that lasted a quarter century." "You're welcome." The room spun behind my closed eyelids. I tasted blood. I'd bitten my tongue clean through. Tyler's voice dropped to something small and terrified. "If Dad finds out, he won't. Because tonight he has a tragic fall down the basement stairs. Head trauma. Maybe a bleed on the brain. Very sad, very sudden. The insurance pays double and the guardianship fight disappears." Brittany again, cold as a scalpel. "And tomorrow, Sanctuary Hills gets one more quiet resident who doesn't speak anymore. Two birds, one stone." I heard the rustle of papers, the power of attorney forms. Tyler's pen scratched my forged signature, practiced 100 times, no doubt. They thought they'd won. They thought I was unconscious. They never checked the vintage 1980s baby monitor I'd pulled out of the attic last month when the grandkids visited. The transmitter was clipped under the recliner cushion, live broadcasting every word to the receiver in my bedroom upstairs and straight into the voice recorder on my phone. I waited until their footsteps faded, until the front door clicked shut and the BMW growled away. Then I opened my eyes. The house was so quiet I could hear my heartbeat trying to punch through my ribs. I stood up slowly like a man stepping out of his own coffin. I walked to the gun safe again. This time I took out the short-barreled AR-15 I'd bought after Meredith died, when grief tasted like gun oil and bad decisions. I laid it on the desk next to the printed maps, the insurance documents, the recorded confession. I looked at the family portrait on the wall, Christmas 1998. Leo, 20 years old, arms slung around my shoulders, grinning like the world was his. Tyler, 17, already sulking in the corner, because Leo got the bigger present. I spoke to the photo, voice raw. "I'm coming, son. I'm late. I'm 25 years late. But I'm coming." Then I did something I hadn't done since the night we buried an empty box of ashes. I cried. Not pretty quiet tears. The ugly kind that scrape your throat and leave you empty. When it was over, I was done being empty. I wiped my face, loaded magazines, and started making phone calls. Old crew, old debts, old skills. By noon, I had 4 ex-Marines who'd once built bridges in Fallujah, drinking coffee in my kitchen, listening to the recording without blinking. One of them, Sergeant Ruiz, missing 2 fingers from an IED, looked up when it finished. "Permission to speak freely. Boss always. Your boy and his wife need to disappear. Permanently. Say the word." I looked at the map. At Sanctuary Hills. At the red pin stabbed through the guard tower. "Not yet," I said. "First we bring my son home. Then we bury the people who put him in the ground." Ruiz smiled the way great whites smile. "Yes, sir." I looked out the window at the manicured lawn Tyler used to mow for appearance's sake. Pretty little lies, all of it. By tomorrow night, that lawn would have tire tracks burned into it. By tomorrow night, I'd be driving east with blood in my eyes and hell in my heart. They thought they fed me poison. They didn't know old concrete men are made of stronger stuff. We don't dissolve. We set. I left the house at 4:17 p.m. with the AR in a duffel, 4 angry veterans in 2 black Suburbans, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. We were 300 miles from answers, and every mile felt like a year I'd stolen from Leo. The plan was simple. On paper night insertion, locate the resident wing, extract my son exfil before moonset. But nothing about this felt simple. My chest kept doing this thing like a fist closing around my heart every time I pictured Leo chained to a bed for a quarter century while I brought flowers to a lie. Halfway across Indiana, I told Ruiz to pull over at a rest stop. I needed 5 minutes alone. I sat on a picnic bench in the cold, stared at the stars, and did something I hadn't done since the funeral. I talked to Meredith. "You knew, didn't you?" I whispered to the dark. "You knew something was wrong the whole time, and I was too broken to listen." The wind answered with nothing. I got back in the truck. Ruiz didn't ask questions. Old soldiers understand ghosts. We hit the West Virginia line just after midnight. The mountains rose up like black teeth. Sanctuary Hills sat in a hollow the GPS barely acknowledged, just a private road with a discreet sign, Sanctuary Hills Memory Care, by appointment only. Memory Care. That's what they called the place where they buried the living. We killed the headlights a mile out and rolled in on parking lights. The fence was 12 feet high, razor wire glinting under infrared. Cameras every 50 yards. This wasn't a nursing home. This was a prison, wearing a nicer mask. Ruiz glassed the compound with a thermal scope. 4 guards on perimeter, 2 roving inside the courtyard. East Wing has heat signatures, maybe 30 bodies, low movement. Sedated. I swallowed bile. 30 people who'd been written off as dead or crazy. My son, one of them. We cut the power at the transformer box, silent, practiced. The cameras died. The floodlights blinked out. The only glow left came from the moon and the rage in my gut. We were over the fence in under a minute. Black fatigue, suppressed rifles, faces painted. I felt 71 going on 35 again. Inside, the courtyard smelled like pine sol and despair. A side door hung open. Somebody got lazy. We slipped through. The corridors were pastel hell. Soft lighting, classical music piped in, and wheelchairs parked like abandoned cars. Every door had a magnetic lock and a small window. I moved down the east wing with Ruiz covering my 6 heart, hammering so loud I was sure it would give us away. Room 112, 113, 114. The little brass numbers looked freshly polished. I raised up on my toes and looked through the window, and the world stopped. He was there. Thinner, gray at the temples, skin pale from no sun. But it was Leo, my boy. Strapped to a bed with soft restraints, an IV dripping something yellow into his arm. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, like he'd been counting cracks for 25 years. I made a sound I didn't recognize, half sob, half snarl. Ruiz grabbed my shoulder. Easy, boss. We get him out clean. I nodded, but my hands were already on the lockpick gun. 10 seconds. Click. Door open. The room smelled like antiseptic and old grief. Leo's head turned slow, drug sluggish. His eyes found mine. For one heartbeat, he looked 20 again, scared kid on Christmas break who'd walked in on monsters. Then recognition hit him like a slap. Dad. His voice was sandpaper and tears. I crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to my knees beside the bed. My hands shook so bad I could barely get the restraints off. I'm here, son. I'm here. He tried to sit up. Couldn't. The drugs were heavy. I pulled the IV needle out of his arm and pressed gauze hard. They told me you were dead, he rasped. Told me every year on my birthday. Said you had a heart attack when I disappeared. Said you never looked for me. I felt something inside me shatter into 1,000 sharp pieces. I look for you every day, Leo. Every goddamn day. He started crying, then silent, shoulders shaking like a child. I pulled him into my arms and held him the way I hadn't since he was 8, and broke his wrist, falling off his bike. He weighed nothing. They'd starved hope out of him. Ruiz whispered from the door. 2 minutes, boss. Patrol's coming back. I helped Leo stand. His legs buckled. I took his weight on my shoulder like I used to when he was little and fell asleep during Cubs games. We were almost to the door when Leo stopped. Wait, Mom's box. I froze. What he pointed with a trembling finger to a small metal lockbox bolted under the bed. The kind they give patients for personal items. She mailed it the week before she died, told the nurse it was for me. They never let me open it. Said I was too agitated. Meredith. Even dying of cancer, she'd been fighting for him. I dropped to the floor, spun the cheap combination lock, Leo's birthday, of course, and yanked it open. Inside, 1 flash drive on a red ribbon and a single Polaroid. The photo first. It was me, last year, standing at the cemetery on the anniversary, laying roses on Leo's empty grave. My back bent, face wet. On the back, in Meredith's shaky handwriting, he never stopped looking. Tell him I'm sorry, I couldn't finish it. Everything you need is on the drive. Forgive me, my loves. Mom. Leo made a broken sound when he saw it. I slipped the photo into my pocket like it was made of glass and jammed the drive into my vest. Ruiz's voice cracked over the radio. Contact left. Guard with a shotgun 30 meters. No time. I half carried, half dragged Leo down the hall. He was trying, God, he was trying so hard, but the drugs turned his legs to wet rope. We rounded the corner into the recreation room and the world exploded. Floodlights snapped on outside, sirens, dogs. They knew we were here. Ruiz and the boys laid down, covering fire, suppressed pops, glass-shattering guards screaming into radios. I kicked open a side exit and we spilled into the courtyard. That's when I saw Tyler's BMW parked by the maintenance gate. He was here. My living son had come to watch me die tonight. He stood under the floodlights in a $1,000 coat, face pale, pointing at us like we were demons. "Shoot them," he screamed. "Shoot them both." Two guards raised rifles. Ruiz dropped them both before they could squeeze. Clean. Center mass. Tyler's mouth opened in a perfect O of shock. I looked at him across 20 yards of cold grass, Leo trembling against my side, and I felt something ancient and biblical rise up in me. Tyler took one step back, then another, and then he ran. I started after him, every instinct screaming to put him in the ground right there, but Leo sagged, knees buckling. "Dad, can't. Legs." I caught him before he hit the dirt. Choice made. I turned my back on Tyler and carried my real son toward the fence where the extraction truck waited. Behind us, the compound burned with muzzle flashes and shouted orders. We threw Leo into the back seat. I climbed in after him, cradling his head in my lap like he was 5 years old again. Ruiz floored it. The fence exploded outward where we'd pre-cut it. We hit the mountain road doing 90. Leo's eyes found mine in the dark. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. "Mom said you would." I couldn't answer. My throat was full of 25 years of apologies. He lifted one shaking hand and touched the photo in my pocket. "She waited for you too," he said, "every day." I pressed my forehead to his and let the tears come. Behind us, Sanctuary Hills disappeared into the trees. Ahead of us, the road stretched, black and endless. I didn't have my revenge yet, but I had my son. And in the pocket over my heart, I had Meredith's last bullet. Whatever was on that flash drive, it was going to finish what she started. Tyler and Brittany thought they'd buried us both. They were about to learn what happens when you dig 2 graves and only fill one. We hit the fire road doing 90 in a 20-year-old Suburban that smelled of gun oil and old coffee. The back seat was a mess of tactical gear, full bags, and my son shaking like a leaf in November. Leo's head was in my lap, eyes half-lidded from whatever cocktail they'd been pumping into him for decades. Every pothole sent a jolt through his body and a knife through my heart. Ruiz was driving, his brother in arms, a quiet giant named Park rode shotgun with an M4 across his knees. The other two, Delgado and Kim, were in the follow truck half a mile back running interference. I kept one hand on Leo's pulse, thin fast, but there in the other on the grip of the Glock on my thigh. "Talk to me, son," I whispered. "Stay with me." He tried to smile. It looked like it hurt. Always wanted to ride in the jump seat again. I laughed once, a cracked sound. When he was 10, he'd begged to sit back here while I hauled rebar. Said it made him feel like a paratrooper. Now he was barely holding on. Headlights flared in the side mirror, 2 sets closing fast. Ruiz saw them too. Company. Black SUVs, no plates. They're running dark. Sanctuary Hills had private security. Ex-cops, ex-military, the kind who disappear people for bonuses. Distance quarter-mile and eating it. The road narrowed, pine trees crowding in like silent judges. No cell signal, no backup. Just mountain moon and murder coming up behind us. Ruiz floored it. The Suburban roared, suspension screaming. Leo's eyes fluttered. "Dad, the chain." I looked ahead and felt my stomach drop. They dropped a logging chain across the road, thick links padlocked to trees on both sides. Reflective tape so we'd see it too late. Ruiz didn't even slow. "Hold on." I threw myself over Leo as the Suburban hit the chain at 95. The impact was biblical. Metal screamed, the windshield spiderwebbed, the hood peeled back like a sardine can. The chain snapped, one side whipped across the roof, took the antenna clean off. We fish-tailed tires smoking, but we were through. In the mirror, I saw the first pursuer hit the remaining chain. It caught their bumper flip and the SUV end over end like a toy. It landed on its roof and burned orange against the trees. One down, but the second truck jinked around the wreck and kept coming. Park rolled down his window, leaned out with the M4. 3 round bursts stitched across their grill. Steam exploded from the radiator. The truck veered, smashed through saplings, but somehow stayed on us. Ruiz took a hard left onto a logging trail barely wider than the truck. Branches slapped the windows like claws. Leo's breathing went shallow. I dug in the med bag, found a preloaded syringe of naloxone combat dose. I jammed it into his thigh without asking. His eyes snapped open, pupils blown wide. "Welcome back," I said. He stared at me like I was a ghost. Then his hand found mine and squeezed hard enough to bruise. "Don't leave me again," he rasped. "Never." The trail dumped us onto an old coal road gravel washboard, sheer drop on one side, rock wall on the other. Headlights behind us again. Closer. Ruiz glanced in the mirror. "They've got friends. 3 more sets of lights, now fanned out hunting. We were the wounded elk, and the wolves had the scent." I looked at Leo, then at the duffel between the seats. Inside was a brick of C4 the size of a paperback book. Detonator already inserted. Gift from Delgado's cousin in ATF. I met Ruiz's eyes in the mirror. He nodded once. I pulled the brick out, armed the timer 90 seconds, and kissed Leo's forehead. "Close your eyes, son." I opened the back door while we were still doing 60. Wind howled in like a living thing. I hurled the brick out behind us, straight into the middle of the road. Ruiz counted down from 5 under his breath. 5, 4, 3, 2. The mountain lit up white. The explosion punched the air out of my lungs. The shock wave lifted the back of the Suburban 6 inches off the ground and slammed it down again. Gravel and fire rained on the roof. In the mirror, the lead pursuer disappeared in a ball of orange. The two behind tried to stop. Locked brakes slid sideways into each other. One went over the edge, tumbling end over end down the ravine, sparks and screams swallowed by the dark. Silence after that, just the engine and Leo crying softly against my chest. Ruiz didn't slow down until we hit a creek crossing 20 minutes later. He pulled under a stand of hemlocks, killed the engine. We sat in the dark listening to the ticks of cooling metal and our own ragged breathing. Leo's voice was small. "Are they gone for now?" He looked up at me, eyes ancient in a face that should still be young. "I dreamed about this," he whispered. "Every night, you coming through the door with guns. I thought I'd gone crazy." I held him tighter. "You didn't go crazy. They just tried real hard to make you think you did." Park handed back a bottle of water and a protein bar. Leo took them with shaking hands like they were gold. I took the moment to breathe. Then my burner phone buzzed in my pocket, 1-bar miracle signal. "Unknown number," I answered. Tyler's voice shaking with rage and fear. "Enjoy your little reunion, Dad. It's temporary." I went very still. "Listen to me, you piece of shit." "No, you listen," he cut in. "You have something that belongs to us. Return it quietly, and maybe Leo lives another week. Keep running, and I promise you both die screaming." I looked at Leo nibbling that protein bar like a scared bird. I smiled. "You still don't get it, do you?" I said softly. "I'm not running anymore." I hung up. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. "Change of plans," I said. "We're not going to the safe house in Pittsburgh." "Where then? Home?" Leo's head snapped up. "Dad, no. They'll be waiting." I cupped his face in both hands, thumbs brushing the tears from his cheeks. "Exactly." I looked at Ruiz. "How fast can we get there?" 4 hours if we push it." "Do it." Leo started shaking his head. "They'll kill you. They have people." "They had people," I corrected. "Half of them are burning in the woods back there. The rest are learning what happens when you wake a sleeping bear." I pulled Meredith's flash drive from my vest pocket, held it up to the moonlight. "Your mother left us a weapon, son, and tomorrow we're going to use it." Leo stared at the drive like it might bite him. "What's on it?" I smiled the way a wolf smiles. "Everything." Ruiz fired the engine. We rolled out from under the hemlocks and pointed the battered Suburban west toward Chicago, toward home, toward the people who thought they could bury my family and walk away rich. Leo fell asleep against my shoulder somewhere over the Pennsylvania line, exhausted, drug-sick, but alive. I stayed awake the whole way. Every mile I whispered the same promise into his hair. They wanted a war. They were about to get one, delivered by a 71-year-old man with nothing left to lose and 25 years of hate to spend. The mountains tried to eat us tonight. Tomorrow we start eating back. I need to tell you this part's slow because it's the night that tore the last piece of the man I used to be clean out of my chest and left something else in its place. We reached the edge of Sanctuary Hills just after 2:30 a.m. The sky was the color of a fresh bruise. No wind. Even the crickets sounded drugged. Ruiz killed the engines half a mile out. We walked the rest in silence, 5 shadows carrying enough firepower to start a small war. My knees were screaming, but pain was an old friend now. Pain kept me sharp. The compound looked different in the dark, innocent almost. Soft yellow lights in the windows hedges trimmed like a country club. A place where rich families paid to make inconvenient relatives disappear with a smile and a monthly invoice. I had the layout burned into my brain from satellite photos and the blueprints Meredith somehow got her hands on while chemo was eating her alive. East Wing Sub-Basement Room 117. That was the only address that mattered tonight. We cut the power into the same transformer box as before. The cameras drooped like dead flowers. Then we moved. I took point this time. The others followed my lead without question. They knew whose war this was. The side door was still propped open with the same brick some lazy guard had used last time. Sloppy, they thought the mountains would protect them. We slipped inside. The corridors smelled of lemon disinfectant and something coppery underneath. Classical music drifted from hidden speakers, Chopin Nocturne in E-flat. Meredith used to play it when she was pregnant with Leo. I almost threw up. Room 117. I reached the door first. The little window was dark. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and whispered the first prayer I'd said in 25 years. Please God, let him still be breathing. I slid the lockpick gun in. 10 seconds. Click. The door opened with a sigh. And there he was. My boy. Strapped to a hospital bed with soft canvas restraints and IV dripping yellow poison into his vein. His hair had gone gray at the temples. His cheeks were hollow. But it was Leo. The same crooked nose he broke falling off the garage roof when he was 12. The same scar on his upper lip from the mowing that got him at 7. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, like he'd been counting the same water stain for decades. I made a sound I hope no father ever has to make. He turned his head, slow, drugged, and those eyes found mine. For one heartbeat, the room was perfectly still. Then his lips moved. Dad. I crossed the space in 3 strides and dropped to my knees beside the bed. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the restraints undone. I'm here, Leo. I'm here, son. He tried to lift his arms when the last strap came off, but the drugs had turned his muscles to wet paper. I pulled him into me instead. He weighed nothing. I could feel every rib. He buried his face in my shoulder and started to cry silent, wrenching sobs that shook his whole frame. I knew you'd come, he kept saying over and over like a prayer. Mom said you would. She said never stop believing Garrett Stone would tear the world down to find you. I couldn't answer. My throat was raw. All I could do was hold him and rock him like he was 5 years old again, and the monsters were only in the closet. Ruiz's voice came soft over the comm. Boss, we've got maybe 4 minutes before the backup generator kicks the cameras back on. I nodded against Leo's hair. Copy. Leo pulled back just far enough to look at me. His eyes were older than mine. I need to tell you everything, he rasped. Before they come. Before they make me forget again. I wanted to tell him there was no rush, that we had all the time in the world now, but the lie would have choked me. Talk to me, son. He took a shuddering breath. It was Christmas break, 1999. I came home early to surprise you and Mom. The house was quiet. I heard voices in your study, Tyler and Brittany. They were emptying the safe. Cash bonds, Mom's jewelry. Hundreds of thousands. Tyler said the construction business was collapsing and he needed seed money for a hedge fund. Brittany said no one would notice if they took it slow. I felt the rage rise hot and familiar. I walked in, Leo continued. Tyler tried to laugh it off, said it was a loan that you'd understand, but I saw the look on Brittany's face. Cold, calculating. I told him I was calling you in the morning. That's when she pulled the gun. His voice cracked. She made Tyler help her carry me to the car. They drove me to an abandoned quarry outside Rockford, poured gasoline. I begged them to let me talk to you. Tyler wouldn't even look at me. Brittany lit the match. He lifted his shirt with trembling fingers. The scars were horrific, rippled pale rivers across his chest and arms. I rolled out at the last second. The car went up. I ran. I ran until my lungs bled, collapsed in a cornfield. A farmer found me, called an ambulance. By the time I woke up in the hospital, Tyler and Brittany were already there with police. Said I'd been in a psychotic break, that I torched my own car because I was jealous of Tyler's success. They had forged medical records, signatures, everything. Mom was away getting chemo. You were on a job site in Milwaukee. By the time you got back, I'd already been transferred here. Private facility. No visitors, no appeals. I was crying now. Couldn't stop. They told me you believed I was dead, he whispered. Every year on the anniversary, they brought me a newspaper clipping of you at the cemetery. Said you never questioned it. Said you moved on. I clutched him so hard I was probably hurting him. I questioned it every single day, Leo. I tore half of Illinois apart looking for the truth. They buried the investigation. Paid off cops. Paid off judges. I didn't have the pieces. He nodded, tears sliding into his gray stubble. Mom knew, he said. She started digging when the cancer gave her nothing left to lose. Found this place, found me. She visited twice disguised as a volunteer. Brought me that Nokia, said one day it would ring and that would be you. I pulled the battered phone from my pocket, the one Tyler had tried to destroy. The screen was cracked, but still glowing faintly. Leo touched it like it was holy. They caught her the second time, he said. Threatened to increase my meds until I was a vegetable. She promised she'd finish it from the outside. She mailed the flash drive the week she died. I swallowed the boulder in my throat. What's on the drive, son? His smile was terrible. Everything. Bank records, offshore accounts, audio of Brittany admitting what they did, video from the quarry. There was a dash cam in their car they forgot about. And patient files. 32 people in this wing alone. All declared dead, all insured for millions. Sanctuary Hills isn't a nursing home, Dad. It's a harvest. I felt the floor tilt. 32 graves with living bodies in them. 32 families told their loved ones burned or overdosed or vanished. 32 life insurance policies cashed. Ruiz's voice again, urgent now. Generators coming online. We gotta move. I helped Leo sit up. His legs wouldn't hold. I slid my arm under his knees and lifted him like he was made of glass. He weighed less than the guilt I carried. We were halfway down the corridor when the lights flickered back to life and alarms started screaming. Red strobes painted the walls bloody. Guards shouted. Boots pounded. Ruiz and the team formed a wedge around us, rifles up. We made it to the recreation room, just a big open space with couches and a baby grand piano. Nobody played when the first guard rounded the corner. Park dropped him with a single suppressed round. Then the doors on both sides slammed open and we were boxed in. 6 guards, shotguns, tasers. One of them had a tranquilizer rifle. Drop it, the biggest one bellowed. Step away from the patient. I shifted Leo higher against my chest and stared the man down. This patient is my son, and you're between me and the door. The guard raised the tranq rifle. Ruiz moved faster than a man his size should be able to. 2 shots. The guard dropped. Then hell opened. Muzzle flashes. Glass exploding. The piano took half a magazine and screamed like a dying animal. I dove behind an overturned couch with Leo clutched to me. Bullets shredded cushions inches above our heads. I looked at my son, terrified, bleeding from a graze on his forearm, where flying glass got him, and something snapped inside me. I came up firing. The Glock barked in my hand again and again, old muscle memory from the Marine Corps I never talked about. 2 guards went down before they realized the old man wasn't helpless. Ruiz and the team laid down a wall of fire that turned the recreation room into a war zone. When the last guard fell, the silence was deafening. Only the alarms kept screaming. We ran. Through the courtyard, over the fence, into the trees where the second Suburban waited. I laid Leo in the back seat and climbed in after him. He was shaking uncontrollably. "I've got you," I kept saying. "I've got you." He grabbed my shirt with both fists. "Don't leave me here," he begged. "Please, Dad, don't leave me again." I looked into his eyes and saw every year they stole from us. And then my burner phone buzzed. Tyler. I answered on speaker so Leo could hear. "You have 10 minutes to bring him back," Tyler said, voice trembling with fake calm. "Or I call every cop in 3 states and tell them Garrett Stone kidnapped a mentally incompetent patient at gunpoint. You'll die in prison, old man." And Leo goes right back to his room. Leo's breath hitched. I looked at the compound burning behind us. Literal flames now something in the pharmacy wing had caught. I looked at my son, clutching my arm, like I was the only real thing left in his world. And I made the hardest decision of my life. "I'm bringing him home, Tyler," I said quietly. Then I hung up and told Ruiz drive. Leo started crying again. Not from fear this time, from understanding. We tore out of the mountains with sirens in the distance and my son's head on my shoulder. I didn't have the full revenge yet, but I had the truth, and I had Leo. For the first time in 25 years, I had my boy. Everything else could burn. We were still on the mountain switchbacks, maybe 40 minutes out from Sanctuary Hills, when the burner rang again. The screen just said unknown, but I knew. Leo was half conscious in my lap head against my chest, breathing shallow from the drugs and the cold night air blasting through the broken window. I'd wrapped him in a wool blanket in my own jacket. He looked small, fragile, like one wrong move and he'd shatter. I answered on speaker. Tyler didn't even say hello. "Pull over, Dad, right now, turn the truck around." His voice was ice cracking over panic. I'd never heard him sound so close to the edge. I kept my own voice flat. "Not happening." "Then listen very carefully," he said, "because I only have to say this once," a soft click. Then another voice came through the line, small, terrified, familiar. "Grandpa." My blood stopped moving. It was Emma, Tyler's 8-year-old daughter, my granddaughter. She was crying. "Grandpa, please come home. Daddy says if you don't bring Uncle Leo back, something bad will happen to me." I heard Brittany in the background, low and vicious. "Tell him exactly what I told you to say, sweetheart." Emma's voice broke. He says he'll make me disappear like Uncle Leo did, and no one will ever find me." The phone filled with her sobs. Leo's eyes snapped open. He stared at the speaker like it was poison. I couldn't breathe. Tyler came back on calm again. The kind of calm that comes after you've crossed every line and discovered there's no bottom. "You have 1 hour," he said. "Bring Leo to the maintenance gate at Sanctuary Hills. Alone. You walk him inside, you walk out. Emma spends the night with her mom like nothing happened. You fight me, she vanishes tonight. I've already got the quarry picked out." I looked down at Leo. He was shaking his head, tears cutting clean tracks through the soot on his cheeks. "Don't," he whispered. "Dad, don't do it. They'll kill you both." Ruiz glanced at me in the rear view. His eyes asked the question none of us wanted to say out loud. Tyler kept talking. "I know you have men with you. I watched the security feed before you blew the cameras. Ex-military. Cute. But they can't be everywhere at once. Right now there's a van outside Emma's school with 2 of Brittany's friends inside. One call from me and my little girl gets in that van. You'll never see her again. And trust me, Dad, some places are worse than Sanctuary Hills." I closed my eyes and saw Emma's gap-toothed smile from last Christmas, the way she still crawled into my lap to be read, to the way she called me Grandpa Bear. Then I saw Leo's scars under the hospital gown. 2 children. One I'd already failed for 25 years. One I might still save. I felt something inside me tear clean in 2. Leo grabbed my shirt with both fists. "Dad, look at me." Look at me, I did. His eyes were wild but clear. "They will never let me go," he said. "You know that. You walk me back in there, they lock the door, and this time they'll lobotomize me before breakfast. Emma still has a chance. She's 8. She has a whole life. I've already lost mine. Every word was a knife." I shook my head. "I can't leave you again." "You have to," he begged. "Please, let me do this one thing right. Let me save her like I couldn't save myself." The mountains blurred past the window. 40 minutes became 30. Ruiz's voice was quiet. "Boss, we can hit Tyler's house. Strack the girl. End this tonight. I wanted to say yes. God help me, I wanted to burn the world down. But I knew Tyler. He wasn't bluffing. Brittany had spent years building a network of people who disappeared problems for money. If we went for Emma, she'd be gone before we reached Chicago. And Leo would pay the price either way. 25 years of guilt crashed over me like concrete. I made the call. Tyler. I said into the phone, I'm coming. Leo let out a sound I'll hear in my grave, half scream, half sob. I hung up before he could say anything else. Ruiz spun the wheel tires, howling, and pointed us back towards Sanctuary Hills. The ride was silent, except for Leo crying against my chest. When we reached the maintenance gate, the compound lights were blazing. Guards with rifles. A gurney waiting. I carried Leo out of the truck myself, his arms locked around my neck like he was 5 years old again. Don't let go, he kept whispering. Please don't let go. I walked until the guards surrounded us. One of them reached for Leo. I kissed my son's forehead, tasted salt and 25 years of stolen life, and forced my arms to open. They took him. He fought, kicking, screaming my name until a needle went into his neck and his body went limp. I stood there in the floodlights, empty-handed, watching them wheel my boy back into hell. Tyler stepped out of the shadows. Arms crossed, smiling like he'd won the lottery. Smart choice, Dad, he said. See, we can all be reasonable. I looked at him, really looked, and saw nothing of me in his face anymore. You just signed your death warrant, I told him quietly. He laughed, big words from a man who just handed over his only leverage. I turned and walked back to the Suburban. Ruiz was waiting, face carved from stone. In the passenger seat, Park held out a small black box, a GPS tracker, the size of a dime. I'd slipped it into the waistband of Leo's hospital pants while I carried him. Tyler never saw. I climbed into the truck, closed the door, and stared at the blinking red dot on the screen. He's still moving, Park said. I nodded once. Drive, I told Ruiz. Where to home? We've got a funeral to plan. Ruiz raised an eyebrow. Tyler wants the world to think I'm dead in a week, I said. Let's give him exactly what he wants. I looked back at the compound one last time. Leo was inside, but now I had eyes on him, and a granddaughter to save, and a son who just sacrificed himself so an 8-year-old girl could keep breathing. I leaned my head against the cold window and let the tears come. I'd left my boy behind again. But this time it wasn't surrender. It was the opening shot. They thought they'd broken me tonight. They'd only taught me how far I was willing to go. Hell itself couldn't hold what was coming for them. I got home at 5:47 a.m. The sky over Lake Michigan was the color of old blood, and the house felt like a tomb waiting for its corpse. I left the Suburban 2 blocks away, walked the rest on foot so the neighbors wouldn't see bullet holes in the fender. My knees were shot, my shoulder bleeding from a graze I hadn't noticed, but I forced myself upright. Old man Garrett was coming home to die today. I had to look the part. Inside, I stripped in the laundry room, threw every piece of clothing into the burn barrel out back, and stood under a scalding shower until the water ran clear. Then I put on the oldest, softest pajamas I own, the ones Meredith bought me the Christmas before she got sick. I wanted to look harmless, defeated. I brewed a coffee I wouldn't drink, spilled half of it on the counter, and left the mug tipped over. I opened the fridge, pulled out leftovers, let them rot on the table. I knocked a kitchen chair on its side. Little details, chaos that said stroke not war. Then I sat down at the dining room table, laid my head on my arms, and waited. At 7:03, the front door burst open without a knock. Dad, Tyler's voice cracked with just the right amount of panic. Brittany was right behind him, already on the phone to 911, voice trembling like an Oscar clip. I let my right arm dangle limp, drooled a little, and moaned. Tyler dropped to his knees beside me. Dad, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand. I squeezed weak, confused. Perfect. Brittany was pure theater. Oh my God. Oh my God, he's having a stroke. Yes, operator, he's 71, unresponsive on the right side. Drooling. Hurry. I let my eyes roll back. They loaded me onto a gurney 20 minutes later. Tyler held my hand the whole way to the ambulance, tears shining real ones this time. Guilt or triumph, I couldn't tell. At the hospital, they ran every test money can buy. CT, MRI, EKG. Dr. Evans, their pocket neurologist, was waiting in the ER like he'd been on standby. Massive ischemic stroke, he announced gravely to Tyler in the hallway, loud enough for 3 nurses to hear. Left hemisphere. He's stable now, but the prognosis for recovery is poor. We're looking at significant impairment. He'll almost certainly need full-time care. Tyler made the correct sobbing noises. They moved me to a private room on the neuro floor. Soft restraints for my safety. IV heparin drip. Speech therapist scheduled. The whole show. I played my part like a man born for the stage. Slurred words, blank stares, right arm limp. I pissed myself once just to sell it. The nurse almost cried, changing me. By the second day, Tyler and Brittany were meeting with hospital social workers discussing long-term placement options. I heard every word through the cracked door. Sanctuary Hills was already on the list. Of course it was. On day 4, they brought the papers. Thick stack, durable power of attorney, medical and financial. Living will, do not resuscitate. Real estate transfer addendums. Everything they needed to bleed me dry while I drooled in a bed next to my son. Tyler sat on the edge of the hospital bed, took my hand like we were in a Hallmark movie. Dad, he said softly, we have to do this. For your own good, you can't live alone anymore. Blink once if you understand. I blinked. Slow. Confused. Brittany laid the pen in my left hand, my good hand, and guided it to the signature line. I let her. I signed every page. Garrett M. Stone in shaky, uneven cursive. They smiled real smiles this time. Victory. Tyler kissed my forehead. We love you, Dad. This is the best thing for everyone. They left the room laughing under their breath. I waited 20 minutes. Then I sat up, ripped the IV out of my arm, and walked to the bathroom on steady legs. In the mirror, I looked like hell, gray, gaunt eyes, red from pretending to cry. Perfect. I flushed the heparin pills they'd been slipping me down the toilet, washed the drool off my chin, and used the burner hidden in my shaving kit to text Ruiz. Showtime. That night at 2:14 a.m., the fire alarm went off on the neuro floor. Sprinklers soaked everything. Nurses screaming, patients wheeled into the hall. In the chaos, a male orderly in stolen scrubs pushed my bed into a service elevator down to the ambulance bay and straight into a waiting van. Ruiz closed the doors. Welcome back, boss. I sat up, cracked my neck, and smiled for the first time in days. Get me to a notary before 9 a.m. By 8:30, I was in a strip mall law office in Gary, Indiana, wearing jeans and a Cubs hoodie, signing a whole new stack of papers, this time with a clear head and 4 witnesses who weren't in Tyler's pocket. Revocation of all powers of attorney signed under duress. New durable power of attorney naming Leo when recovered and Ruiz as co-agents. New living will resuscitate, fight, never give up. And most importantly, a criminal complaint with the Illinois State Police Financial Crimes Division attaching Meredith's flash drive and the audio of Tyler and Brittany confessing everything in my living room. The notary stamped the last page at 8:58 a.m. At 9:12 a.m., Tyler's phone would have buzzed with a text from his lawyer. All POAs revoked. Client no longer has authority. Stop all transactions immediately. I wish I could have seen his face. But I was already on the road again, back to Chicago, back to the house. I walked in the front door at noon like a man returning from the dead. Tyler and Brittany were in my study boxes everywhere, packing my life into cardboard. They froze when they saw me standing there, upright, clear-eyed, holding the certified revocation papers. Tyler went white. Dad, you're... How I smiled, the coldest smile I've ever worn. Stroke was a lie, son, just like your entire life. Brittany lunged for her phone. I was faster, grabbed. It crushed it under my boot. Tyler tried next, blustering, threatening tears. I just handed him the revocation. Read it out loud, I said. He did, voice cracking on every syllable. When he got to the part about criminal referral to the state police, he dropped the papers like they burned him. You can't, he whispered. Emma, I stepped close enough to smell his fear. Touch my granddaughter and I'll forget you were ever born. Brittany tried to run. Ruiz and Park were already blocking the door, arms crossed. I looked at the two of them, my son and the woman who destroyed my family, and felt 25 years of rage settle into something calm and lethal. You wanted me helpless, I said quietly. You wanted me drugged and silent while you stole everything I built. Congratulations. You got your wish for 5 beautiful days. I pulled Meredith's flash drive from my pocket, the red ribbon still tied around it, and held it up. Now it's my turn. Tyler started to cry ugly, snotty sobs. I turned my back on him. Get out of my house, I said. You've got until sunset. After that, every cop in the state will have your picture and a warrant. They stumbled out like drunks. I stood in the doorway and watched their BMW peel away. Then I walked to the mantel, picked up the family photo from 1998, Leo's arm around me, Tyler sulking in the corner, and I spoke to the empty room. One more trip, son, I whispered to Leo's frozen smile. One more trip, and I bring you home for good. I looked at the calendar on the wall. 25 years to the day since they buried him. I circled the date in red. Then I started planning the final act. Because some funerals aren't for the dead. They're for the living who deserve to be. I hired the team in a windowless bar outside Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the kind of place that smells of stale beer and old wars. 8 men, all Tier 1 ghosts who'd left the service because the government stopped letting them win. Ruiz knew them from Fallujah and Kandahar. They didn't ask why a 71-year-old builder needed a direct action cell. They just looked at the satellite photos of Sanctuary Hills, listened to the 30-second clip of Leo's voice recording where Leo begged, "Don't leave me again," and every one of them said the same thing we're in. Price $500,000 wired from the Cayman's account Meredith had hidden for exactly this day. They called it the Resurrection Fund. I called it blood money finally earning its keep. We flew into a private strip in West Virginia on a blacked-out King Air at 2 a.m., exactly 6 nights after I'd been forced to hand Leo back. The plan was surgical and extract burned the records out before sunrise. No hostages, no ransom calls, no negotiations were over. I rode in the lead Blackhawk with the assault element. I was wearing the same plate carrier I'd worn in '73 when I was a 19-year-old grunt in Quang Tri. It still fit, barely. The pilot dropped us 2 miles out. We fast roped into a pine thicket so dark it swallowed sound. Night vision turned the world green and ghostly. My heart was hammering so hard, I was sure the mics would pick it up. Ruiz put a hand on my shoulder. Remember, boss, you're the principal tonight. You stay on me, we get Leo. We all go home. I nodded. Home. A word I hadn't believed in for 25 years. We moved. The compound had tripled security since the last visit. New razor wire motion sensors, dogs roaming 4-man teams with suppressed MP5s. They were ready for a small raids. They weren't ready for us. First element took out the guard towers with 300 blackout rounds. Quiet Pop's bodies slumping like marionettes with cut strings. Second element kills the backup generator in the comms tower. Third element, Rice and me, breached the East Wing service door with a shaped charge that sounded like a cough in the night. We flowed inside. The corridors were dim red emergency lighting, classical music still playing softer now like a lullaby for the damned. Every door we passed had a nameplate and a date of death. I saw one for a woman who'd supposedly died in 2011. The light under her door was on. Someone was moving inside. I almost lost it right there. Ruiz pulled me forward, eyes on the prize garret, room 117. The door was reinforced steel, now biometric lock. They'd upgraded after our last visit. Didn't matter. A breacher named Kowalski slapped a strip of det cord around the hinge line, nodded once. I turned my face away. The charge went off with a flat crack. The door fell inward. The room was dark except for the green glow of monitors. Leo was there. Strapped down tighter than before, wrists, ankles, waist, even a soft helmet bolted to the bed so he couldn't bash his own brains out. IV lines in both arms pumping God knows what. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling again. When he saw me in the doorway, something broke across his face that I can't describe. Hope, terror, disbelief all at once. I crossed the room in 4 strides and started cutting restraints with trauma shears. Dad. His voice was a croak. Tell me I'm not dreaming again. You're not dreaming, son. We're going home tonight. He started sobbing so hard the bed shook. I pulled the needles out of his arms, pressed gauze, taped it down. He was skin and bone. They'd barely fed him since I left. Ruiz covered the door, rifle up. 30 seconds, boss. I slid my arms under Leo and lifted. He weighed 98 pounds. I almost dropped to my knees right there. He wrapped his arms around my neck like a child and buried his face against my shoulder. I knew he kept whispering, "I knew you'd come back." I carried him out. We were halfway down the corridor when the lights snapped white and the alarms finally woke up. A voice boomed over the intercom. "Brittany, lockdown initiated, all patients secured, lethal force authorized." Doors started slamming shut automatically. Ruiz swore. "They've got magnetic blast doors. We're boxed." I looked at Leo in my arms, then at the team. "Plan B," I said. Plan B was simple. We stopped being quiet. Kowalski slapped a brick of C4 on the ceiling, timer set for 15 seconds. We ran. The charge blew the sprinkler main. Water cascaded down like Noah's flood. Emergency strobes painted everything red. We sprinted for the recreation room, the only place with windows big enough to breach out of. Guards poured in from both sides. The team formed a moving perimeter around me, and Leo rifles barking in controlled bursts. Bodies dropped. Blood mixed with sprinkler water and ran pink across the tile. I kept moving. Leo clutched to my chest, whispering in his ear the whole time, almost there, stay with me." We hit the rec room. Kowalski kicked out a floor-to-ceiling window. Cold mountain air rushed in. Rappelling lines were already dropping from the roof, two Blackhawks hovering silent on stealth baffles. We clipped Leo into a rescue harness, clipped me to him, and the winch yanked us into the night sky. I looked down once. Sanctuary Hills was burning in half a dozen places. Files' bodies lies everything they'd built on top of my son's grave. The last thing I saw before the helicopter banked west was Brittany standing on the lawn in a silk robe screaming up at us, face twisted into something inhuman. I smiled. Then I turned my face into Leo's hair and held him while he cried all the way across 3 states. We landed on the same private strip at dawn. Medics were waiting, real ones this time. They took Leo gently from my arms, laid him on a stretcher, started IV fluids, checked vitals. He reached for me, panicked. I climbed into the ambulance with him, took his hand. "I'm right here, son. Not leaving again. Ever." He looked up at me with eyes that had seen 25 years of hell and still found room for trust. "Take me home, Dad." I kissed his forehead. Already there. Later, in a safe house outside Pittsburgh, while Leo slept under real blankets for the first time in decades, I sat with the team around a kitchen table littered with coffee cups and gun oil. Ruiz slid a tablet across to me. Live feed from a drone we'd left circling Sanctuary Hills. The place was swarming with federal vehicles now. FBI, ATF, state police. Meredith's flash drive had been couriered to 3 different newsrooms and the U.S. Attorney's Office at 4:00 a.m. By sunrise, the story broke nationwide. House of Horrors in West Virginia. Dozens declared dead, found alive and drugged. I watched Brittany being let out in cuffs, still screaming that it was all a mistake. I watched Tyler's face when they showed him the quarry footage on an agent's phone. He folded like cheap lawn furniture. I felt nothing. Not yet. Ruiz poured me a shot of something amber and strong. To Leo, he said, we drank. I looked at the closed bedroom door where my son was finally safe. Then I looked at the calendar on the wall. 25 years to the day. I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt since 1999. One more thing, I told the team. They waited. Tyler wants a funeral, I said. Let's give him the best money can buy. Ruiz grinned like a wolf who just heard the sheep had scheduled a barbecue. Yes, sir. I stood up, stretched my cracked old spine, and walked to the window. The sun was coming up over the hills, pink and gold and clean. I whispered to Meredith, to every ghost I carried. We're not done yet, but we're close. Behind me, Leo called out in his sleep, my name soft like a prayer. I went to him. I sat on the edge of the bed and held his hand until he settled. And for the first time in a quarter century, I slept too, dreaming of a house with the lights on and both my boys laughing in the kitchen. One more act to go. Then we could all come home. I buried my son once in a closed casket full of lies. Today I was going to watch the people who filled that casket bury him again, this time with cameras and tears and a string quartet playing Ave Maria. They called it the 25th memorial service for Leopold Meredith Stone. I called it opening night. St. Adalbert Cemetery, 10 a.m. Gray November sky, wind sharp enough to cut bone. Tyler had rented the biggest tent the funeral home owned. White roses everywhere. A blown-up photo of 20-year-old Leo smiling alive on an easel at the front. A second empty casket waited beside the fake graveside draped in lilies. Symbolic, they said. Poetic. I sat in a wheelchair at the very front row, blanket over my knees, oxygen cannula taped to my face even though my lungs were fine. I wore the same black suit I'd worn to Meredith's real funeral. It still fit. Grief keeps a man lean. Tyler stood at the podium in a $6,000 coat, eyes red-rimmed for the cameras. Brittany was beside him in designer mourning veil, fluttering like a black butterfly. Reporters from 3 networks stood at the back live streaming the tragic anniversary. They'd turned my pain into content. I kept my head bowed, shoulders rounded, hands trembling just enough. The perfect picture of a broken old man attending his son's memorial one last time before death took him too. Inside, I was a lit fuse. The priest droned through the opening prayer. Tyler stepped forward, voice cracking on cue. 25 years ago today, our family was shattered. My brother Leo was taken from us in a senseless accident. My father never recovered. And today, as we gather to remember Leo, we also face the reality that Dad's health is failing fast. The doctors say it could be weeks, maybe days. He paused, let a tear fall. Perfect timing. The camera zoomed. I promised Mom on her deathbed that I would take care of him, that I would honor Leo's memory. That's why after this service, Dad will be moving to a private care facility where he can be comfortable for whatever time he has left. Polite murmurs, a few people dabbing eyes. I lifted my head slowly, let my lip tremble. Tyler knelt beside my wheelchair, took my hand like a loving son. I know it's hard, Dad, he whispered loud enough for the front 3 rows. But Leo would want you to be at peace. I squeezed his fingers once weak, confused. Then I let my hand fall limp. Brittany leaned down, kissed my forehead through her veil. We love you, Dad, she murmured. This is what's best. I stared straight ahead at the photo of young Leo and felt the rage settle into something cold and pure. The string quartet started again. People began lining up to place white roses on the empty casket. I waited. I waited until the mayor finished his speech about healing. I waited until the news anchors started their soft, solemn sign-offs. Then I reached under the blanket, fingers closing around the small remote in my lap. One press of a button. Every screen in the cemetery, 2 jumbotrons Tyler had rented for the live tribute, flickered from a photo montage of Leo to black. Then the audio started. Tyler's voice crystal clear, recorded in my living room the night he thought I was sedated. You ate ramen because you blew your tuition on crypto, babe. Whatever. Point is, he's had his turn. 25 years of playing the grieving father. I did what had to be done. He saw us moving the money. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brittany's voice next cold as winter steel. I burned a problem, and then I gave us both an alibi that lasted a quarter century. You're welcome. The quarry dash cam footage rolled night vision green, Tyler dragging a screaming Leo toward the car, Brittany pouring gasoline. The tent went dead silent except for the wind. Tyler's face on the podium drained of color so fast I thought he'd drop. Brittany actually screamed an animal sound and tried to run. 2 plainclothes FBI agents stepped out from behind the headstones and caught her by the arms. More agents appeared moving through the crowd like sharks. Tyler looked at me, really looked for the first time. I was already standing. No wheelchair, no oxygen, no tremor. Pushed the blanket off my legs and walked toward him slow and steady, every step deliberate. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Tyler backed up until his heels hit the casket pedestal. Dad, he started. I stopped 2 feet away. You wanted a funeral? I said loud enough for every microphone still live. Here it is. I turned to the cameras. My son Leo is alive, I announced. He's been held prisoner for 25 years by the people standing right here, his own brother and sister-in-law, who faked his death for insurance money and greed. Sanctuary Hills was their harvest field. Today, the harvest ends. I gestured behind me. The gates of the cemetery opened. A black SUV rolled slowly up the gravel path. The back door opened, and Leo stepped out. Thin, gray, walking with a cane, but upright, alive, wearing the same black suit I'd bought him when he graduated college, the one we buried empty. He stopped beside me and took my hand. The sound that came out of the crowd was inhuman. Sobs, screams, cameras clicking like machine guns. Tyler dropped to his knees in the mud. No. He kept saying, no, no, no. Leo looked down at him without a word. Then he looked at the empty casket draped in lilies and laughed, once short, sharp, broken. Brittany was fighting the agents now, shrieking about lawyers, about mistakes, about anything that would keep the world from seeing what she really was. Tyler tried to crawl toward us. Leo stepped forward and placed one hand on his little brother's shoulder. Tyler froze. Leo leaned down and whispered something only Tyler could hear. Whatever it was, Tyler folded in on himself and started sobbing like a child. I didn't ask what he said. Some truths are private even on a stage this big. The agents cuffed Tyler right there beside the fake grave. As they dragged him past me, he looked up, face streaked with mud and tears. I'm sorry, he choked out. Dad, please, I looked at him, my youngest son, and felt nothing but the weight of Leo's hand in mine. You stopped being my son the night you lit that match, I said. They put him in the back of a cruiser. Brittany went screaming. The cameras never stopped rolling. Leo and I stood there while the tent emptied, while the lilies were trampled into the mud, while the fake casket was loaded back onto a truck and driven away. When it was just us and the wind, in 25 years of ghosts, Leo turned to me. His voice was steady. I want to go home now, Dad. I looked at the headstone that had borne his name for a quarter century. Then I looked at my living, breathing son. Home's this way, I said, and pointed west. We walked away together. Behind us, the cemetery workers were already jackhammering Leo's name off the stone. By the time we reached the car, the only thing left on the marker was a blank space waiting for the truth. We never looked back. I have never been so calm in my life as I was the morning of the fake memorial. Everything inside me was quiet the way the lake is quiet right before a storm tears the sky in half. 71 years old, knees shot, heart scarred by 25 years of carrying a coffin that was never heavy enough, and I felt weightless. Because today the coffin was going to be filled with the right bodies. St. Adalbert's Cemetery, November 20th. Exactly 25 years to the day, they told the world Leo burned. The tent was enormous white canvas snapping in the wind, white roses everywhere like fresh snow, hiding blood. A string quartet played something mournful and expensive. 3 television trucks. 150 guests in black. A blown-up photo of 20-year-old Leo grinning like the world was kind stood on an easel beside an empty polished mahogany casket draped in lilies. Symbolic reinterment, they called it. A chance for the community to say goodbye again. I sat in a wheelchair at the very front, blanket over my lap, nasal cannula feeding me perfectly good air I didn't need. I kept my eyes half-lidded, hands trembling just enough for the cameras. I looked like a man one breath away from his own grave. Tyler stood at the podium in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, voice cracking on cue. My brother was the best of us, and losing him broke my father in ways no medicine could ever fix. Brittany sat beside him, veil fluttering, clutching a monogrammed handkerchief she had dabbed exactly 7 times for the close-up shots. I counted. They had rehearsed this like a Broadway show. The priest finished the blessing. A soprano from the lyric opera sang Pai Jesu so pure it could make angels cry. Then Tyler took the microphone again. Today isn't just about remembering Leo, he said, letting his voice waver. It's about family, about promises kept. After this service, Dad will be moving to a private memory care estate where he can live out his days surrounded by peace, not pain. I promised my mother I would take care of him. And I will. He turned to me, knelt, took my cold hand in his warm one. The camera zoomed. I let a tear roll down my weathered cheek. Perfect. Tyler squeezed my fingers. We love you, Dad. I gave the smallest nod. Inside, I was smiling like the devil. The quartet began again. Guests rose one by one to lay white roses on the empty casket. Old friends, business associates, politicians who owed me favors, neighbors who'd watched me mow that damn lawn every Sunday for 25 years. I waited. I waited until the mayor finished his speech about healing. I waited until the news anchors started their soft practice sign-offs. I waited until the very last rose was placed and Tyler stepped back to the microphone for his closing words. Then I moved my thumb under the blanket and pressed the single red button on the remote. Every screen in the cemetery, two 75-inch jumbotrons, and the LED wall behind the casket flickered from the slideshow of baby Leo, teenage Leo, college Leo, to black. The quartet stopped mid-note. A single spotlight hit the podium, and Meredith's voice filled the tent clear as the day she recorded it 6 months before cancer took her. If you're hearing this, I'm gone, and they've finally come for Garrett. Everything you need to destroy them is on the drive hidden in the cedar box. Tell my husband I love him. Tell my Leo. Tell my boy his mother never stopped fighting. Gasps rippled outward like circles in water. Then Tyler's own voice, cold drunk on power the night he thought I was sedated. The old bastard sat on a mountain of money while I was eating ramen. He's had his turn. 25 years of playing the grieving father. Brittany's laugh sharp as breaking glass. I burned a problem. And then I gave us both an alibi that lasted a quarter century. You're welcome. The quarry dashcam footage began night vision green, unmistakable. Tyler dragging a gag, thrashing Leo toward the car. Brittany dousing the seats with gasoline, striking the match, the explosion blooming orange. The tent went dead silent except for the wind and one woman's involuntary scream. Tyler's face on the podium turned the color of old ash. He looked at the screens, then at me. I was already standing. No wheelchair, no oxygen, no tremble. I pushed the blanket to the ground and walked toward him, slow, steady, every step deliberate. The crowd parted like God himself had ordered it. Brittany tried to bolt. Two female FBI agents in black coats stepped out from behind the flower arrangements and caught her by the elbows. Tyler stumbled backward until his calves hit the casket pedestal. Dad, he croaked. I stopped 2 feet away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Every microphone in the place was live. 25 years ago, I said you put my son in the ground and told me he was dead. Today, I'm here to correct the record. I turned to the cameras. Leo Stone is alive. He has been held prisoner, drugged, and tortured by the two people standing on this stage. Sanctuary Hills was never a nursing home. It was a slaughterhouse for the inconvenient, and these two ran it. I gestured to the gates of the cemetery. They opened slowly like theater curtains. A black Suburban rolled up the gravel path, tires crunching. The back door opened, and Leo stepped out. He was thin gray at the temples, leaning on a cane, wearing the same black suit we'd buried empty. But his eyes, God, those eyes were the same fierce blue I remembered from the day he was born. He walked toward us. Every camera swung to him. Phones rose like periscopes. The sound that rose from the crowd was something between a psalm and a prayer. Leo stopped beside me. He looked at the casket, at the lilies, at the blown-up photo of his 20-year-old self. Then he looked at Tyler. Tyler dropped to his knees in the mud mouth, working soundlessly. Leo's voice, when it came, was quiet, but it carried to the back row. You told me every year on my birthday that Dad had died of a broken heart. You brought me newspaper clippings of him at this grave crying. You made me believe I killed him with my accident. You made me hate myself for 25 years. He took one step closer. Tyler flinched like he'd been struck. I forgave you once, Leo said. When I was 20 and stupid and thought you were just weak. I will never forgive you again. Brittany was screaming now, mascara rivers down her cheeks, fighting the agents. Shut it off. Shut it off. This is a hoax. Leo turned to her. You used to braid my hair when I was 6, he said. You sang me to sleep when I had nightmares. And then you poured gasoline on me. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the battered Nokia 3310, the one that had rung in my china cabinet. He held it toward the casket. The phone landed with a soft thud among the lilies. Return to sender, Leo said. The crowd lost it then. Sobs, shouts, people fainting. Reporters shouting questions that no one answered. Tyler tried to crawl toward us, mud soaking his expensive suit. Dad, please. I was scared. She made me, Leo crouched, looked his little brother in the eye. You were 21, Leo said. Old enough to know fire kills. Old enough to know wrong from right. You chose money. Live with it. Tyler's face crumpled. He folded forward, forehead to the ground, and started making sounds I hope I never hear again. I put my arm around Leo's shoulders. Together we turned to the crowd, to the cameras, to the world. My son is home, I said. The dead have risen, and the guilty will answer. Federal agents moved in from every direction. Now 20-30 of them, vests marked FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals. They cuffed Tyler right there in the mud while he begged. Brittany was dragged past us still screaming about lawyers, about mistrials, about anything except guilt. As they put her in the back of a van, she looked at me with pure hate. You'll never prove I leaned close enough to smell her fear. We already did, I whispered. Every account, every patient, every dollar. Enjoy your new room. It has a window. You won't see the sun for the rest of your life. The door slammed. Tyler was last. They had to carry him. His legs wouldn't work anymore. When they brought him past me, he looked up, face unrecognizable. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I loved him. I loved you. I just, I looked down at the boy I once carried on my shoulders and felt only the weight of Leo's hand in mine. You stopped being my son the night you chose greed over blood, I said. Goodbye, Tyler. They put him in a separate car. The gates closed. The cameras kept rolling the whole time. Leo and I stood alone in the suddenly empty tent while workers started taking down the flowers, the screens, the lies. He looked at the casket one last time. Can we go home now, Dad? I kissed the top of his gray head. Yeah, son, let's go home. We walked away together past the headstone that would be blank by tomorrow, past the trampled lilies, past 25 years of grief. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain and something new. Hope, maybe. Or just the smell of a story finally finished. I didn't care. I had my boy's hand in mine, and the road ahead was wide open. Behind us, the cemetery workers started the jackhammer. Leo's name came off of the stone in pieces. By the time we reached the car, there was nothing left but clean granite and a future no one could steal again. We never looked back. The second Leo's foot touched the cemetery grass, the air changed. It was like the sky itself inhaled and held its breath. He stood beside me in the cold November wind, cane in one hand, my arm in the other, and for one heartbeat, the entire world was perfectly still. No cameras clicked, no one breathed, just the two of us alive together in front of a casket that had mocked us for 25 years. Then the screaming started. Brittany, first high anima ripping out of her throat like something being born wrong. No, no, this is impossible. He's dead, you're dead. She lunged at Leo, nails out, veil flying, looking like every horror movie ghost she'd ever tried to create. Two female agents caught her, midair, slammed her to the ground so hard the mud splashed her perfect black dress. Tyler just folded. He dropped straight to his knees in front of the open grave mouth, open eyes wide, staring at Leo like the devil himself had come for payment. Leo, he whispered, then a louder cracking. Leo looked down at him, calm as winter water. Hello, little brother. That was all it took. Tyler made a sound. I hope I never hear from another human being. Half scream, half sob, pure collapse. He tried to crawl forward, hands clawing at the mud, reaching for Leo's shoes like a penitent at an altar. Leo stepped back. The agents moved in fast, black windbreakers, gold badges flashing. 4 of them surrounded Tyler. One yanked his arms behind his back. Steel clicked around his wrists. He didn't fight. He just kept staring at Leo, tears and snot mixing with the dirt on his face. I didn't want to, he babbled. She made me. Brittany said it was the only way. I was scared. Stop, Leo said quietly. Tyler stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. Brittany was on her feet again, thrashing against the agents holding her. Her veil had torn away. Her face was twisted into something feral. You senile old bastard, she spat at me. You think this changes anything? We had lawyers, An agent slapped cuffs on her so hard, her head snapped sideways. She shrieked, tried to bite the woman's hand. They dragged her past us. As she went by, she locked eyes with me. Pure black hatred. This isn't over, Garrett, she hissed. I will burn everything you love. I leaned in close enough that only she could hear. You already did, I whispered. And I'm still standing. They shoved her into the back of an unmarked SUV. The door slammed. Her screaming kept going muffled now until the engine drowned it out. Tyler was last. They had to lift him. His legs wouldn't work. When they brought him level with me, he looked up, face destroyed. Dad, he croaked. Please, tell them it was a mistake. Tell them I looked at him, my youngest son, the one I once taught to swing a hammer, to tie a tie, to be a man, and felt nothing but cold, clean clarity. You ceased being my son the night you chose money over mercy, I said. His face crumpled completely. They put him in a separate car. As the door closed, he pressed his cuffed hands against the window mouth, forming my name over and over. Dad, 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 I turned away. Leo slipped his arm through mine. The cemetery was emptying fast now. People fleeing, crying, some on their knees praying. Sirens in the distance growing closer. Federal vans rolled in, blocking every exit. An agent with FBI across his chest approached us, respectful, almost gentle. Mr. Stone, Mr. Leo Stone, we'll need you both to come downtown for statements, but take your time, whenever you're ready. Leo looked at the empty casket one last time. Then he looked at me. I'm ready now, he said. We walked past the trampled lilies, past the ruined tent, past the headstone that would be blank by tomorrow. Halfway to the car, Leo stopped. He turned back to the grave, pulled the battered Nokia from his pocket, the one that had started everything, and tossed it into the open hole. It landed with a soft thud among the wilted flowers. Rest in peace, he said. Then he took my hand again and we left the dead to bury their own. Behind us, the gates closed. The cameras kept rolling, but we didn't look back. Not once. The new house sits on the north shore of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where the water is so clear you can see the rocks 20 feet down and the pines come right to the edge of the dock. No gates, no cameras, just wind water and the kind of quiet I used to think only existed after you died. We moved in on the first day of May. Leo picked the place, said he wanted to wake up every morning and see something bigger than four walls and a locked window. He's gained 32 pounds since the rescue. His hair is brown again, the gray retreated like it was ashamed of itself. He walks without the cane most days, though he still keeps it by the door just in case the past decides to limp back in. I'm 72 now. My knees still sound like gravel in a blender, but I can split firewood again and that's enough. This morning the sun came up red over the water and I found Leo on the end of the dock, barefoot, holding the old Nokia 3310 in both hands like it might explode. I knew what day it was without looking at a calendar. 6 months to the day since the cemetery. 6 months since the world watched Tyler and Brittany disappear into federal custody. 6 months since Leo and I walked away from a grave that never deserved his name. I walked the length of the dock boards, creaking under my weight, coffee steaming in 2 mugs. He didn't turn when I sat beside him. Still got a little battery left, he said, voice soft. I charged it last night. Stupid, right? I handed him a mug, not stupid. Necessary. He thumbed the green button. The ancient screen lit up that familiar, sickly green. 1 bar, 1 message waiting. He pressed play on speaker. It was his own voice recorded 25 years ago, the night before Christmas break, 1999. A 20-year-old kid excited, a little drunk on holiday and freedom. Hey, Dad, it's me. Just landed at O'Hare. Don't wait up. I'm surprising you. Tell Mom I love her. See you in a few hours. Can't wait to be home. The message ended with the old beep. Leo stared at the phone like it was the last piece of the boy he used to be. Then he started to cry, quiet shoulders shaking the way men do when they don't want the world to hear. I put my arm around him and let him. When it passed, he wiped his face on his sleeve and looked out at the water. I kept dreaming they'd let me call you one more time, he said. Just once, just to hear your voice and know you were still out there looking. They never did. I swallowed the rock in my throat. I looked every day, son. Every damn day. He nodded. I know that now. He turned the phone over in his hands, tracing the cracked plastic, the worn keys. This thing saved us, he said. Started everything, ended everything. I took a slow sip of coffee. Time to let it rest then. Leo looked at me, eyes red but clear. Yeah, he said. Time. He stood up. I stood with him. He pulled his arm back like a quarterback and hurled that indestructible gray brick as far out into the lake as he could. It flew beautiful arc against the sunrise, then dropped with a soft, final plunk 30 yards out. The ripples spread, touched the dock, and were gone. We watched the spot until the water was glass again. Leo exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 25 years. It's really over, he whispered. No, I said. It's just beginning. He turned to me, confused. Pointed back toward the house. On the porch stood Emma Tyler's little girl, now 9, waving both arms like a windmill. She'd been living with us since the courts terminated parental rights. Her laughter carried across the water. Behind her, Ruiz and his wife were unloading grocery bags, arguing good-naturedly about who burned the pancakes last time. Park and Kowalski, the breachers from the rescue, were on the lawn teaching Emma how to throw a frisbee with a former Navy SEAL's precision. Delgado was firing up the grill, already wearing the ridiculous kiss the cook or walk the plank apron we got him for Christmas. This was our family now, the one we chose. Leo's eyes filled again, but this time he was smiling. "Look at that," he said, voice thick. "We got a loud, messy, imperfect one, just like Mom always wanted." I put my hand on the back of his neck, same way I did when he was 10 and scared of thunderstorms. "Your mother's watching this right now," I told him, "and she's laughing her ass off because we finally figured it out." He leaned into me. We stood there a long time, two silhouettes against the rising sun, father and son, breathing the same free air. Emma came running down the dock, barefoot, pigtails flying. "Uncle Leo, Grandpa breakfast is almost ready, and Uncle Marcus says if you don't come, eat his feelings will be hurt forever." Leo scooped her up without effort, something he couldn't have done 6 months ago, and spun her once. "Tell Uncle Marcus, his feelings are safe." He laughed. "We're coming," she squealed, wrapped her arms around his neck, then reached for me too. I took her hand. The three of us walked back up the dock together. Emma in the middle, swinging between us like she was flying. Halfway to the house, Leo stopped. He looked back at the lake one last time, at the spot where the phone had vanished. "Goodbye, old life," he said quietly. Then he looked at me. "Hello, new one." I squeezed his shoulder. We kept walking. Inside, the kitchen was loud and warm and smelled like bacon and forgiveness. Someone had set an extra place at the table. Always an extra place now because you never know who might need a seat. Leo slid into his chair. Emma climbed into his lap, and I took the head of the table, same spot I'd sat in for 50 years of Sunday dinners. Only now it felt right again. Ruiz raised his coffee mug. "To the ones who made it home," he said. Every mug lifted. Leo met my eyes across the table. His were shining. Mine were too. And for the first time in 25 years, I didn't hear a phone ring in the dark. I only heard laughter in the lake lapping gently against the dock and the sound of a family that death itself couldn't kill. That was enough. That was everything.